Yeah, I thought, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. See if I can get everybody's attention here.
Actually.
Let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and get started.
I think, Jeff, did you say we should get started?
Yeah, I probably so. I'm not the last person. Okay, I will go ahead and call to order the December administrative meeting of the Planning Commission. Jackie, if you are all welcome. Yes.
Morse,
Here.
Margaret Clemens here, Bernie Garitas,
Here.
Edward Olman,
Yep.
John Enright Randolph.
Here.
Gary Pittsford.
Here.
Chris. Julie Thomas. Okay, Dee Owens,
Yes, but it won't let me. The says the host hasn't got my camera on.
got it, and then, we have everybody go.
Yeah.
Oh, Carol Munson, I apologize.
I moved.
We have, 8 members in attendance.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. So before we get started, thank you to everybody from the public who has joined us tonight. I wanted to remind everybody that maybe hasn't been to one of these meetings before, that this is a public meeting, but it is not a public hearing. So we won't be taking any public comment tonight, but we would invite you to engage with us at other public hearings that we have. The adoption of the ordinance. So our only item on the agenda tonight is under administrative business, the county development ordinance work sessions. So Jackie, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, awesome. So what I would like to propose tonight for our work session, I have 3 items for us to work on. The first is going to be actually for you all to break out into groups and to go over some examples that staff has put together for you to look at the draft zoning map, the 2-pagers that is in the Plan Commission packet. And then to kind of come up with some of your discussions, comments regarding the examples that staff has put together. The second part of the meeting, I would like us to discuss some of the changes that we've proposed that are in the packet, including the zone types and whether those are appropriate based on lot size. And then the last item that I would like to talk about is timelines. But for those that are in the room or on Zoom, since we will be having a work session, it might get a little bit difficult to follow what exactly is going on. So I would like to just notify everyone in the room how to provide comments. And also I can provide any printouts of documents if anyone would like to go through some of the examples that I've put together for this Plan Commission. You're welcome to also look at those. On the monroecdo.com website, there is an option for public input. And then if you press the go here, you are able to submit your name, email, and any comments that you have that's general. We also have on the website the map, the draft zoning map. So if you click on the map here and click on the draft zoning map, and you have a particular parcel in mind that you would like to provide feedback on, you are welcome to do so. So I'm just going to zoom into a general property here, and you can click on the parcel itself. And you can see what the proposed zone is, so CR 2.5, and then the current zoning of Ag RR. And you can click on this feedback survey. And this is where you would put your name, the address. It does autofill the parcel number. And then you would rate how satisfied or dissatisfied you are with that zone. Along with the draft zoning map, if you were on the monroecdo.com website or on the county website, there's a link to the latest CDO Module 2 draft that you can review. What we're calling 2-pagers for each zone. So if you know what your draft zone is, there's a 2-page document, which I'll pull up. That tells you basically all the permitted uses, all of the conditional uses, what the lot size will be, what the setbacks will be. So it's pretty helpful. You can go to find the document for the document center. This is just one way of accessing tonight's packet. So this is the December 5th packet. And this is an example of one of the 2-pagers. So this is the Ag 2.5 zoning district. All of the primary uses from the use table are located on this first page. The conditional uses, which means it would involve one request to the Board of Zoning Appeals before the use can be permitted, and then accessory uses. And then on the second page, you would have all of the design standards for that zone if you wanted to subdivide or develop a lot in this zone. For instance, it requires a 2.5 acre lot size. The setbacks for the side for residential are 15 feet, maximum impervious cover, 10,000 square feet or 10% of the lot size. So that's all being drafted and recommended in this draft of the CDO module 2. So it's all open for your review and edits and discussion. So the idea tonight is to start working with this clean draft that's in the packet and start obtaining some further feedback on where in the county should there be certain zones, or should we change certain zones, or are there, uses within zones being proposed that are not appropriate, such as within this 2-pager, you could look and say, I don't think that it's appropriate to have a cemetery mausoleum located in the Ag 2.5 zone. That could be a comment that comes from tonight, and the Plan Commission could take that comment moving forward and change this draft before it gets adopted.
Or they could not.
Or they might not, yes. And of course, this would all go to the county commissioners for final adoption or it becomes enacted, but that is the goal for tonight. So I do have one group example that I'm going to walk through, and then I'm going to break you out into groups, and you're going to do exactly my example, but with just yourselves. So, any questions? Okay. So our example is going to be, and just as a note, I'm hoping that we can spend about 25 minutes on these prompts in a group discussion. We may not have time to report back, but I do want you to note that we're going to also have a work session in January. So depending on how this goes, we may be able to report back at the next meeting. I also would encourage you to do the other prompts for the other groups if you have time, just to give your feedback. And also the addresses that I've picked are totally random. They do not relate to petitions that we have. And I'm not advocating for a change. I'm just wanting us to kind of dig in and look at some of these examples.
But they are real addresses.
They are real addresses and real properties, yes. Okay.
How did you randomize?
I looked at the changes that we're making in the zoning ordinance use table, and then I worked backwards to find zones of those properties. Okay, so the first location is 6140 North Stars.
John's got his hand raised. I'm not sure if that's.
I usually just join and as a panelist whenever they get to it.
Okay. Bill, yes, okay. All right, so this example includes these 2 properties here. On the handout, I'll go ahead and kind of zoom out so people know what we're talking about. Here's West State Road 46, you're near Flatwoods Park, county jurisdiction, Ellettsville is to your east. So these 2 properties are currently zoned agriculture rural reserve with a business industrial overlay. You have the town limits here. Okay, so then the questions are, since this is Ag RR with a business industrial overlay, while also noting that floodplain is proximate. The first prompt is to go ahead and find what the proposed zoning is for this parcel. So I would ask that the Plan Commission have either a device or that they ask staff for some assistance. And go ahead and look up what the property would be zoned, and this is how anyone at home would also go ahead and access this CDO draft zoning map. So we zoom in and click on the parcel. And we find that its proposed zone is Ag 2.5. So the question in the example use is warehouse and distribution. Would this use be allowed on this property?
Jackie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please. Please. Thank you.
Yep. So warehouse and distribution located 6140 North Starnes Road. Is this use allowed on this property? So what you would do is you would go to the CDO document and find that 2-pager and find the Ag 2.5 2-pager and see if warehousing and distribution is listed. So on Ag 2.5, oh, Edward, go ahead, you have a question.
I'm a bit embarrassed here, but I can't get the map to work for me. And I
Okay.
did the address and it won't. I did exactly what you did and it's not working.
Okay.
It takes a while, it's
It took a
been,
minute.
been
It
kind of
said no
really,
results.
really difficult.
Okay.
44 stars.
Maybe just follow along with the example, and then when you get into your groups, I'll
Okay.
make sure you have a map that works.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll help.
I went.
We'll have staff that'll be floating around. Okay.
I'm on Elevate, it's slow too.
We'll bring these to you, Bernie.
Well, yes, we'll bring out around all the paper copies as well. So on this 2-pager for Ag 2.5, you would look to see if warehousing and distribution is a permitted use. And you would find that on the 2-pager, you're not going to see it listed. So in this area, it's not permitted. So that would be the answer. Is that the use is not allowed at this property? Yes, Jerry.
What does the BI overlay have to do with it?
The business industrial overlay currently, the purpose of that is for properties that are zoned agricultural. It was a holding pattern to say that if they ever were to rezone to light industrial, it would be kind of incentivized or more of an appropriate rezone request. And that there were other design standards that should go along with development in that BIO overlay to possibly reserve it for industrial use.
And it limited residential.
Limited residential
Yeah.
use.
Because it was an industrial business and industrial.
So if you,
Okay.
are we okay to ask questions or is this for our group to do?
This is exactly the type of conversations that I think that will take place in your small groups, but also
Okay.
for people that are here. So then the next question, do you think warehouse and distribution should be permitted at this location? And a note to just see what the adjacent properties are used as, you would zoom out and see there's KP to the north, but also there's agricultural uses to the west, south, and low density residential. And then I'm asking you to look at the 2-pager for both the light industrial zoning district, because this does have the business industrial overlay, as well as the Ag 2.5 2-pager, and we have those printed out so you can compare those side by side. And maybe just mark up what you think would be appropriate or inappropriate for this particular property.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
You know, with business changing and you know, some of the concentrations going back to agricultural in our community. Given the fact that this is a 4th-generation farm, is there anything that we'd want to do to incentivize its continuity by removing it from the business overlay? Or,
So right now, we're recommending removal of the business industrial overlay, and it's just zoned Ag 2.5.
okay, great.
I'm sorry, Jackie. So first question. Going back to the warehousing and distribution. We pretend that that's what the landowner wants or that that's what a petitioner's coming in and asking for, then we're evaluating as if somebody's coming in and wanting that use.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And then the BI, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I understand what you're
Okay.
saying now. This is a request. Not,
And then the
And request.
But the BI overlay is not gonna be a function of the new zoning ordinance, correct?
It's not.
Okay. There you go.
So this would be the 2-pager for. LI, so light industrial would be on your page 30, so you would compare this page and the Ag 2.5 and maybe, you know, strike out or highlight or however you want to mark up. Using this template example, that would be kind of the goal of this exercise, and then if you have time, we have another proposed pretend use. So are there any questions about what? All of the examples in your breakout groups will be very similar to this. So are there any questions that you have? Okay, and then while you're working, we will have a staff member kind of address the folks come back to see if they have any questions or anything they want to give comments. Yes.
And just, I guess, due to where these particular parcels are or examples, they're just adjacent to the town, and I'm curious, I know it's just an example purpose, but maybe you just identify that you are able to go and look at the town of Ellisville zoning. So if some of your examples are adjacent to the town, I think it's appropriate to at least indicate what adjacent zoning is going on. So for this example, you know, I would have, you know, appreciated, I guess, in a sense, to make sure that we are looking at the town as well as the county. And I just wanted to point that out and then, you know, make sure and make note that, you know, we should consider that. I know everyone has their own way of doing things, but just due to that example, I feel like it was necessary to comment.
Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and pull up the different worksheets that you all will be utilizing. You mind passing out the.
I mean, how does see our groups? We don't like people around.
We won't make you sit alone.
Yeah, come on, Jerry. So the PI overlay does not exist, so it's not really consideration.
It's a consideration as to whether you think the property should tip towards Ag 2.5 or light industrial in this example.
Because
That's kind of the question.
But it still exists, so it has to be. What you're saying.
Over there right now, it's draft.
It's not.
Just because it's not in the draft, the new draft doesn't mean you shouldn't consider it as an option or to provide guidance on what you're deciding.
Should we consider annexation into the town of Ellisville?
I think that's what Todd was getting at. Well, not just getting at, but like, I mean, yeah, you want to have all information. on the table.
Location warehouse.
I couldn't find the parts.
Okay, so we need to key in this number.
Just give me a second. Chris.
53
I'm not ready.
I gave you a 53 -0-1-200-200.
Yeah.
Definitely. 000.
I got stuff. My finger was on.
Because you're not very good with it.
Oh, no, don't say that. Oh, you're gonna have to.
Okay, so we get. I need to get one.
Is this where the jail is going? I was here, yeah, I got.
Start looking at it.
Oh, that was.
Does that help, Bernie? First place I go is actually.
It's the pink.
elevated, right? This is probably-
So like this is the first. Bring your chair there. Access to ice. Does this have access to ice?
Here's nice, you know.
It has access to I-69, so you know.
So it gives them a total of.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The drop down.
We're gonna see.
Then we're supposed to zoom into the property and see what designated it has proposed.
It should give you things for zoning.
Sense of finding definition or standard, let me know, we do have paper copies. Definitions and standards.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna click on this, is that okay? I like to follow the road. Property class code 501 property.
Oh,
Class.
cool. Yeah, we get all this.
On the classes, it's on the plan, it's the land.
What happens is the final number, which I would.
You're ahead of me. Fine if we They should have did something. Are you talking about the? Okay.
This. Point two one actual lot. Elevator.
That's all right.
Then it's.
I'm on the elevation and then it lights kind of thin. Because it operates.
I'm gonna do a couple things to get like transparency on my zoning map, so I can look at this from skin. So let me show you this thing, so. Three dot.
Maybe on the draft.
So you have to click over here on the little layer list of 3 pages, 3 numbers, one down, one back.
Oh, that's that.
Yeah. And then, scroll down just a little bit. See where it says, proposed zoning by sample or by. Click on the 3 dots. And then you can change the transparency. So you can start seeing the area behind it, like. I like that better.
There might be something.
But there's still our input into.
Some crime about that is that LV women and.
Right here.
So that big was.
Okay, so we need to see the parts.
There's 2 of them. You got to do the 5 part. And then the one right below it. Yes. And the one that says.
That's the piece that he's got.
Oh, okay.
We're struggling being able to key in the address in the draft zoning. Struggling.
You see, that's the layers and you have to.
Got the parcel.
We don't know how to.
I might have down and see that there was a building out there.
Yeah, you can see the buildings, you can see what's across, which looks like a little all stars.
Like
There's tiny, you know, I had to help,
This looks like I made this party. Zero, zero, seven,
Yeah.
008. 000. Yeah. It's.
So that goes to-
These things, something, what here?
Yeah. You're gonna wanna try to find it in the CEO.
I have the property records. Oh, is that right? Yes. I do, yeah.
What are you, marketing?
So.
It's no.
Later, it's.
It looks like it's- This is gonna be.
Letter, all the way.
Did more than that. I knew. So they're seeing, right, look over here. Or micron. So basically.
Why things are going,
Yeah. it's right.
back is because of, is this in a flood zone? You know, most of the things that are going away from, back to, are not in a flood zone. So that people don't get the impression they can build when they can't.
And the next question is, it current flood zone is zero. Well, no, that's limited to property near the flood zone. Then we need to find near.
Current.
Or the.
Right.
Don't near vertical, so.
If you click on it,
That's prime, so it'll probably.
Yeah, and then if I just here, and I thought it's so bad, it's not so bad, so bad. It doesn't show.
Yes.
Yeah. Right with this photo.
I'm having a different one, so I'm not sure.
Okay, well, now, it's asked, like,
Yeah, so that street's like right.
I made
Well, you have to, so.
two. So I like.
I agree with it being so close to I-69. Industrial, you know.
They're not abiding by it.
Because
So,
the land that I had
For
listed
instance,
is 14
if you're-
acres. Like just some kind of minute here. Okay, so we got.
So there's two of them.
Okay, so yeah.
Break it up from what? Let's say.
Limited. That's. I mean, when I think of it, it's just one by its seed, which is weird. Why would I even-
Yeah.
More definition. It's always-
It's a wide.
Hi Dee, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can everybody else hear us too?
Yeah, I thought they were still working on their big group example, and so we'll go ahead and start ours. I think if I share screen, I think they're trying to get me to be able to share screen, and they're probably muting us too.
Okay.
I haven't been able to share just yet.
Yeah, I've got my iPad out because I can't get two things on the screen of this laptop, so I'm
Okay.
trying to
I think Ann is still figuring
look
out.
things up that way, and I'm just confusing myself. So,
Right. I think they're trying to mute us in the room. But I also need to share screen. So Dee and I can go through our example. Unable to share screen. And just when we think we're getting good with technology here on Zoom, I'm struggling.
well, just when I think I've got it down, then a new thing comes up and I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, and then for 2024, we are all being forced to switch to Teams. So we'll be learning a whole new video platform.
I use Teams in my most recent work. So yeah, I've done that too. And it really was, I just go, come on, do I gotta learn something new?
Okay, so I'm unable to share screen. That's too, I've like sent a text to them too as well. So, we
Yeah,
have a property at 151 West Church Lane. And
yes, I have that up.
I don't know if you were able to look at that on, geez, they're not hearing me that I need help with sharing screen.
Yes, I have that one. I have that one pulled up on my iPad.
Okay, great. And are you looking at it from the CDO map or are you looking at it from?
Yes, from the CDO map.
Okay, so then I guess as we fill out the page, I can fill that out if you don't want to, because I know you're using mono screen. So what is the current proposed zoning? And I'm going to do a direct message to all of them and be like, can I share screen?
Yeah, what I'm trying to figure out is I watched her do the example online. Oh, there it is. You just click on it. Okay.
Yeah, if you click on the parcel, you should be able to see how to look at
parcel I clicked on is not the address that's in the box. Okay.
Oh.
Did
you like directly type in the address in the upper left corner?
In the box, 151.
It should be highlighted, and I usually just touch the box, like I click on the box with my mouse, and it should come up with the address, the parcel number, the proposed zoning code, and then the current zone.
Yeah, this says the address of that.
I just got screen also. Here we go.
Okay. The address, it says when I touch on it to bring up the CDO piece, it shows a completely different address.
Okay. Does it look something like this?
Not at all.
So are you on the CDO map?
Yes.
So what I did was I typed in the address here and I went for search.
Yeah, me too. And that's what you get.
And then I actually like went down on the menu here and clicked on it. So this is the property here. Were you able to get to that?
I see. Now it comes up. Okay. Yeah.
And then if we click on it, we can confirm the address, the parcel number.
Got it.
This is the proposed zone, which is a new zone, RC1, Rural Community 1. And then the current zoning is estate residential, which is a residential zone mostly. If we were the public, we wanted to do the feedback survey, we could do this, and we can also link to the CDO website. So with this information, I'm going to go ahead and put this, oh. I don't know if I can share screen more than one thing at a time. All right. Oh, my Word doc. Oh, there's my Word document. Okay. So I'll type in the RC1 zoning. And then we're going to look at so one is, do we agree with the zoning for this location? And then we're going to look at a use called dwelling, live, work, and see if we think the definition matches this area and is appropriate. So I think it would also be good for us to look at what it looks like in Elevate. So here we're at that intersection of Old State Road 37 and South Fairfax.
Mhm.
You can recall there's a gas station here. I think there's an ice
Mhm.
cream shop, plumbing place here.
All these, yep.
Mhm. So we have kind of like a little hub of commercial, and then switching back over to the CDO map. It's looking like we're proposing, some, what's this? Limited business through here, residential out in this area, and then RC1, which has this interesting, like, it's found also, I think we're proposing RC1 in like Steinsville and Harrod. So I'm trying to memorize the salmon color. So we should see it in in Smithville area. We'll see it probably up in Steinsville, I think up here.
Mhm.
I don't think we're proposing very much. There's just maybe a teeny bit, maybe out in the Unionville area, maybe, but there's not sewer. So these are places that are rural, also may have that possibility of sewer, like Harrodsburg down here. So that's what we're looking at zoning wise for this one. Okay, so then let's look at the 2-pager. Have you been able to pull up the?
I have not yet. Let me,
Okay, so that's part of the packet,
yes.
and I already have it pulled up as mine.
Is it the one that says link to module 2 CDO?
No, we haven't modified our website just yet. It
Okay,
was in the
okay.
calendar Evite.
We use the draft zoning map.
Well, let's see. How would I describe how to get there? I sometimes go to the Monroe County website
Mhm.
and go to the calendar. And we're currently in this Plan Commission administrative session.
Mhm.
And here's the packet and agenda.
Yeah, I've got the packet in front of me. I just
Okay.
I don't
So,
know
yeah.
what thing to click on.
All right, you're just going to start scrolling down, and we're going to look for the RC Rural Community 2-page zoning. Of course, we don't have page numbers just yet because this is still such a raw draft. We're not spending time on that. So I have it as approximately page 11, where we call it the 2-pager because one of them is going to be all fully just full of our uses, the primary uses, conditional uses, which have to go to BZA, and accessory uses, and temporary uses also. And then the second page for this is going to have a lot of the design standards associated with it.
Mhm. So RC1 is meant to be kind of a transition area between more suburban and more ag RR. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. It's gonna like kind of be these little hubs where you have sewer, you have some walkability of these communities like Harrodsburg and Steinsville. And we want it to want it so that they have the ability to be very flexible with what they can do there. And so there are, the thing that we're going to be looking at is let's just confirm. Let's see, we are going to be confirming what this example use of the dwelling, live, work. First, can we see if it's permitted here? We'll also be looking to see if grocery store is permitted here.
Mhm.
And then also with dwelling, live, work, we want to look and see any conditions. So I would kind of like look through here. And I think I see under conditional uses, dwelling, live, work.
Mhm.
Do I see grocery store in here?
Yes,
Great.
retail. Mhm.
All right. So these are things like we're wanting to see, like, is this appropriate for one, the area that we're looking at right now? And maybe also considering some of those other areas that we're thinking about zoning at RC. I'm going to then now flip down to the dwelling, live, work definition, just so we can kind of understand what that truly means. So we edited a lot of these
Oh,
tables.
yeah.
We've put in probably 150 staff hours.
I
of
can
time in our
imagine. It's
office getting this polished
unbelievable.
up. So let's see. So this is a table that we've been working on. I'm trying to get to the dwelling, live, work is here. It's permitted in our RC1 zone. And then we're going to keep scrolling down to look at the definition and any special conditions.
Mhm.
So might try to do a little change.
Uh-oh, they turned the sound back on.
I'd like to come back together as a group. I know we're working hard and appreciate everyone's patience here.
They're gonna
Okay.
probably steal the screen from me back here.
I am gonna steal the speed.
Thank you.
We didn't get very far, Dee. I'm sorry.
We did okay. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we've gone through some of these examples, what I would like to do for the next session, if you all can send me your feedback either today, if you have handwritten notes, or if you would like to take those home. I emailed you all a Word document version. I can make those available online, of course. But we just want your feedback on those exercises of what you think the answers are or should be. And then it will pull out some of those talking points. You know, the answers are the zoning looks good. I have no comments. Obviously, we don't need to report back on that example, but if there are different examples that do need more discussion, I think that was helpful. Also, you all are welcome to do each other's examples, so you can take a look at the ones that Edward, Jeff, and Jerry just did, or Tron and Cheryl, or Bernie, Margaret, and Chris. You can all take a look at each other's examples and give your feedback and submit those to staff. So a little bit of homework for those of you that are ambitious. The next part of the discussion that I wanted to have is in regards to the number of zones and the types of zones that we have in the draft right now. So on the screen, this is page 4 of the packet. It lists out the different zones that we have, and we've gone through with the Plan Commission in the past. We've kind of come up with these items together and voted on them. But 2 changes that I want to bring your attention to. Staff noticed that the urban density residential, which is in the 2-pager, it had a lot size of 0.07 acres. We didn't feel like after we reviewed that, we thought that those that dense of a lot size was not fitting with the county context. So we're recommending striking this. But the next dense zone will be high density residential. And then we're based on some conversations we had at the ordinance review committee, we're also recommending adding what's called estate density residential, which could be a lot size similar to something like 0.67 acres. That's something that we heard from you all. So in terms of the residential zones, you would have a 0.14 acre lot size, a 0.21 acre lot size, a 0.34 acre lot size, a 0.67 acre lot size, 1 acre. RC1 is a little bit tricky. It can be anywhere between 0.14 acres to 1 acre, depending on the context. And then obviously the 2.55 and 2.5 would be 2.5 acres, 5 acres, 2.5 acres. So I wanted to spend maybe 10 minutes on this discussion, if anyone wanted to bring up any comments or concerns that they had regarding the number of zones or any issue that you see with anything on the screen, because making edits to the number of zones changes a lot of the structural components of the ordinance. It takes probably one of the more, it's one of the more time consuming changes that we have. So as early as you can give us feedback on saying, you know, this is appropriate number of zones, these are the right lot sizes, things like that. That all factors back into the use table, it factors into the setbacks, so it has implications for multiple sections of the ordinance.
Bernie and I were talking and Chris as well. And it seems as though a lot of useful zones have been eliminated. You know, and that we've kind of combined too many into too broad a category. And that utility of the number of zones in the original CDO seems to be more precise and helps us shape our community a little bit more.
You have an example of a zone that we're losing that.
I have it on my desk at home. I have some of those at home, but I didn't bring that 3-foot high list of changes, you know, that are going on with today.
Okay.
But oh, there that is.
This is the big picture conversion chart that we've discussed. So basically, you know, these 3 zones here, general commercial, area dependent for annexation, as it was once called, general business, are all going into the general business zone. So that's how these 3 zones are consolidated into general business. So these thick, bold black lines are what the zones are being converted into as proposed. So if there are concerns on the left-hand side of zones that we're getting rid of, or it's too consolidated, what would be helpful is to just mark up this conversion chart to say, I think that, you know, I think limit industrial should stay separate from light industrial. That would be a comment that you could have based on looking at these tables.
Okay.
And one thing we talked about when we were looking at the uses was we started striking a bunch, and this is what, probably 2 years ago. So when we looked at the table of uses, we ended up trying to eliminate several uses that were in the use definition.
Eliminate or consolidate. We actually ended up eliminating 2, and that was taxi cab stand and commercial uses with industrial adverse impacts.
And that's where I was going with that. So that consolidation, when we looked at the uses,
Yes.
we moved those in that language. The consolidation came into proposed uses
Right.
under their definition. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
So your guys' example, I think, is helpful for the group to maybe see. So you had an example where it was going to be retail sales medium. And so we listed out for you, this is one of the bigger areas of the ordinance that is being consolidated in terms of uses. So we have all of these individual uses right now in the ordinance. And so if it's, you know, there's 2 ways of looking at it. One is the zones are too consolidated, and the other is the uses are too consolidated.
Right.
Because we can separate out uses in the use table, no problem, without changing the number of zones.
Okay. I'll get back to my notes.
I know this is so.
So on the, well, I guess your example of the uses that are going to general business, or no, the zonings that are going to general business.
Yeah.
Did all the uses from those just go right into general business, or did you redistribute those through?
So general business on the 2-pager, if you were to compare that to the current zoning ordinance, I think that you would find that it'd be pretty similar. I know, like, for instance, some of the uses that we're battling with in the general business zone, we're thinking about if the point of the business zone is to generate employment. There are some uses that we may have allowed, that may not generate a lot of employment, such as like boat and RV storage or self-storage. And so it's a consideration for the plan commission to say, you know, we think that this type of use should be permitted in these types of zones.
Were those uses, I saw some in here, but were most of those uses you just mentioned placed in other zones? So another one's like an RV park. We've been RV parks out here. How, and I think I had a conversation with you on another. I had someone looking to want to do an RV park.
Sure.
And we weren't sure where to place it at the time. I think in our current, right now it's an ag,
Yeah, so RV park or RV storage?
RV park.
Okay, recreational vehicle park, so you
Yes.
see people come there
Like
and actually
Lakeland Road.
camp there.
Yeah,
Okay,
or like
yes,
Jellystone.
yep, okay, I'm with you. So is your question, where is it permitted?
Yeah, like where is that? Yeah.
Okay, so recreational vehicle park is conditional in the Ag 2.5, FR 5, and CR 2.5 zones.
Is that the current one?
On airport.
Or is
No,
it-
this is the draft.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not permitted in.
It is only conditional.
Yeah.
And so the track changes are helpful here. We've tried to keep this as clean as we can, so if there are changes in terms of the naming of the use, you may not see that as, we tried to accept some of those track changes, but like real estate sales, model home office, we are adding that as a permitted use in some of the rural zones, because we're seeing that oftentimes these get converted into residences after 3-5 years. And the use is somewhat similar, so that could be a comment that you go through and say, I don't think that's appropriate, I think you should take that back out. So it is tracked under the use table. I was having you all look at the 2-pagers because it's kind of an easier way than looking at the use table. And those are kind of newer ways of formatting the ordinance.
You guys have done a great job.
I have really.
Just the conversion. Is
And
that something we can get online or,
It is on the CDO website, but I'll make it more obvious.
okay, I know I've seen it once before, but
Okay.
I don't want to pair through everything to find it.
Okay.
Also, kind of, I'm curious if it would take a lot of time or maybe it's something that is somewhat pieced together or not, but this is really nice because it kind of sees how we're condensing or combining certain zones. And that's something we've been talking about since 2016. Also, what I'd be very interested in is the uses from our old zones and how those are being distributed or put into these current proposed zones. Do we have a diagram of that?
We do have a red line version that we did put together of the current use table and how the names are changing and where the uses are changing. It is, it's a lot to look at.
It is.
We would, we could look at it together and we could go through that. We tried to create kind of a cleaned up version. And your point of.
I think there's two
what's changing.
value or two different use cases and two different ways we could get some value. One, I think that would be very helpful for us because we're not taking this use to figure out what zone it's in. We can look at the zone and see where that falls since we're combining our zones. And then also, I think it will be very busy, but the whole ordinance in itself is a very busy document. So I think it could be very helpful for the public too. So when they see it, they can kind of follow along with it too. So it'd be something I think would be very helpful from my end. And also I think maybe some people with the public could benefit from something like that as well.
Got that. All right.
Quick question. So one thing I was looking at through the high, medium, and the urban that we're looking at taking out, density residential. So with the zero lot line construction. If you got a property that's zoned either, well, will be urban density now, HD. It's 0.14. And a lot, minimum lot size of 1/1400 of an acre. So if someone wanted to develop a property with zero lot line construction, they are still able to do that as long as it lists the setback at 0 on a plat? Or is that a permitted? Can that be, does that have to be a request that the plan commission can say yes or no to?
So right now, the way that it's drafted in the current zoning ordinance is that it has to be designated on the subdivision plat. If your comment is that you would like it to be by right, let's say 2 lot owners, or I own 2 lots and I wanna put a paired patio home and have a lot line down the middle of it. We don't have a way of doing that unless those 2 are platted. So if your request is to make that like a permitted use, without going through the subdivision process, then that would be something that we would address in the use table.
We got into this before about the 0 lot line side yard setback, and I thought our discussion and our conclusion was that that should not be done by right in the county.
In the current ordinance, the way it's listed is it has to be designated on the subdivision plat. Is that your question, or your question is how did we end the discussion at the plan commission?
Well, I thought that we had made the decision that 0 side yard setbacks in the county would not be by right. It would just always be subject to review by the plan commission.
That's how it's drafted right now, but I
Okay.
think Bernie's question is.
That is my question. So if I look at, and I'll just use UD, let me use the one that's gonna stay, I'm sorry.
It's high density. Page 21.
The HD is footnote 3, 0 foot side setback on one lot line is permitted if designated on a subdivision plat. So where does it say that that is discretionary to the plan commission?
Yeah.
Because I think paired patios, I differ from Margaret on this. I think paired patios are a great tool and they're popular.
We have so many of them. What we don't have are single family housing, and that's what Pete Yockman has said that his employees want, that they want separated single family homes, and he's going outside of the county to build them. You know?
He's not building paired patios.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive. though. I mean, different people have a different taste for.
Well, we've satisfied that taste. We have so many of them.
So
What's the number?
Well, more.
So how you would utilize that, so that's. How it's drafted with that footnote is very it's identical to how we have it in the current zone. What our idea is to also have like a single family paired dwelling, 2 units. With standards, so you would go to the bottom of the use table and find what the standards are for this use.
I don't think we should incentivize them.
So to your question, Bernie, you're just asking if
Yeah, my goal is,
we're not accidentally having an ordinance where this could be construed as a by right.
yeah, I wasn't necessarily bringing up 0 lot line because, is it for or against? It was just a question because that lot, that parcel size between, just to use rough numbers, between the HD is a 78 by 78 lot. And a UD is a 55 by 55 lot, which would both be useful for a paired, for a 0 lot line paired patio. Both would be, you could accommodate a paired patio with either one of those sizes. My question was, in reading this though, it looks to me that if Margaret wants to do a paired patio development and she just says on the plat, it's 0 lot line, that she can do that.
Yes.
That's why I read this.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree. So
Okay.
under the use table, single unit paired dwelling 2 units, the standard. Permitted with standards in the zone, it says must be located within a platted subdivision and noted as 0 foot side setback on one side. On the subdivision plat.
This is just like double speak to me, because what we had said earlier is that it's not permitted by right, and right here, we're saying it is permitted by right, and I'm just like, my mind's exploding.
So I can show you what the way it is in the current zoning as well, but I do have one more question after this. I wanna get to the point of you know, this is staff's recommendation, but do we wanna take a hand raise vote as to, whether you agree, I guess we could say, do you agree on adding an estate density residential zone lot that would be 0.67 acres? Do we wanna do like a quick hand raise as to whether you think that's missing in the county and an important,
I think that's 7 acres is too small.
0.67?
Yeah, it's too small.
What was the impetus for this? I remember some limited discussion here and there, but would you maybe talk about how it precipitated, why we're discussing it today?
So, this was discussion at the ordinance review committee. There's been the CDO survey feedback that's been submitted. And there's been some discussion about, upzoning or downzoning, so changing the density, changing the lot size of certain parcels. And so the discussion came up that there's really nothing in between 1 acre and 0.34 acres in the county right now. And so if we wanna have a lot size that's in the middle of those two, we need to add it into the draft at this point in time. So, it, you know, it could be something where, 0.67 acres is, it can be determined whether that's, you know, requires sewer or what have you, but it's a question to you all as to whether you think that lot size would be appropriate and maybe.
I was not.
So 1.0 acre is covered. 0.34 is covered.
I mean, I don't know, actually, I'm trying to.
No, that was like, that's the one if I watched it, it was the one.
Do you
Long discussion.
people wanna do a hand raise of, you agree that 0.67 acre zone, you know, lot size is helpful and staff should attempt to draft that into the zoning draft and add a 2-pager. If your vote is yes, could you raise your hand or do you?
Question for staff, I guess, like, do you really think that we should create a new zone or we should create some more flexibility in the existing zone so we can actually maybe incorporate those, you know, in the middle lots?
So we had a brief discussion about whether if someone called in and let's say their lot was on sewer or versus their lot was on septic, could we have 2 different standards for one zone to say, you know what, you're on septic, you can't have 0.67 acres, you must have 1 acre. The problem is that most people don't know whether lots properties are on sewer or septic, and we don't wanna get in a situation where it's like, they're calling in, they just want basic information about a parcel, and we say, well, we'll have to get back to you on the lot size, cause you don't know if it's septic or sewer. I think that as a staff, we were talking about how that might be confusing to the public.
I had a follow-up right there, sorry, Jerry. And I guess, is this planning's idea of addressing it, then is this the best way to administrate it, is to create a new zone? I know it's similar questions, they're a bit different.
I
Do you
think,
prefer to build it out in the existing zones to address that 0.6 acres if that's what you were looking to do?
so if, I guess staff sees it as helpful if the plan commission would like to see some sort of bridge between 0.34 acres and 1 acre minimum lot size. But, you know, I think there's still discussion to be had about where the 0.67 belongs, if it were to be enacted.
So part of this is about, how vacant lots should be zoned, but part of this is about acknowledging the zoning that exists. And where there is higher density already. And you can't, you want to ensure that for existing zoning, that we're recognizing what's there and not creating a zone that doesn't fit what's there. So we can't make something that's right now zoned and already built at, 0.5 acres, we can't make it 1 acre. Because then they're gonna be
Non-conforming.
right, so that's the crux of this is how, yes, I recognize that we have to acknowledge what's there, but the question is really, what are we going to do with the vacant lots that are, 10 acres, 11 acres, 15 acres, 20? What are we gonna do with those and how are we zoning those? And I think those are 2 different questions, so I don't want us to go like, oh, we can't have 0.5 acres anywhere in the county. Well, we do already. So we need to acknowledge that and have that zone. It's, but whether vacant lots should be zoned 0.5 acres, that's a different question.
But also, I mean, so if, yes, but if the subdivision is built with a PUD,
Yeah,
okay?
that's a whole, that's.
It
its own zone.
remains a PUD for forever.
Yeah.
It can never be pre-existing non-conforming.
Right,
And so you know, almost all of the
Okay.
lot sizes that are smaller than a half acre, 0.67 acres are parts of PUDs, aren't they?
We have a lot of lots that are under half acre. There's a lot.
We have a lot older lots. Yeah.
Lake Lemon is
Lake
like.
Lemon.
Oh, yeah, Lake Lemon.
Lots, yeah,
yeah.
all the rural communities have
Rural
really small.
communities are
lots.
really,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's, that's the difference, and
I
I
see.
don't want us to get.
That's a good point.
To get like, hey, we can't have 0.5 acres, well,
Yeah.
we can, we already do.
Yeah.
We already have 0.67, right, so. That's one thing, and the question is about the vacant lots and what those should be zoned, and that, I think, is the key to understanding the future of the county.
I see.
To me.
I see.
Well,
That's good.
if I might not add a whole lot, but simply refining the question of sewer versus septic is that, you know, the 6.67 as far as future development, I would say needs to be in urbanizing zones because you know that they're transitioning toward an urban format. I don't think it's appropriate in places that are not urbanizing or won't urbanize unless it's a rural community. You know, I think even though sewer may not be allowable when somebody calls in today, 10 years from now, it may be, and that 0.67 may be appropriate because we do have reasonable projection that that's going to be incorporated into an urban zone, town of Ellisville, city of Wilmington, or even in a place where sewer is being extended by a private sewer corporation. You know, those are factors. They're genuine factors. You know, just the same as when we look to the north, we know that geographically, topographically, intense developments not likely up there because the city of Wilmington utilities has looked, and extending water and sewer out there is prohibitive. It's just not going to happen. So even though it's adjacent to a lot of things that may tend to make it look like it's urbanizing, it's not, it won't in terms of residential.
So if we were to explore adding 0.67 acre parcel, do people feel like staff needs to bring you back more information to make this vote? Or do you feel like you could vote on it today to say?
I'm comfortable to say go forward with it and then incorporate these concerns in there.
Go to raise your hand if you want to add a 0.67.
And that's as long as it's not for new blank parcels, but to make
Oh,
the
that's-
existing.
It's
Yeah.
just to enable
Just to have it.
parcel.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we need to acknowledge what's there.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, so at the ORC a few weeks ago, when we discussed we had a struggle because we went from 0.34 acres all the way up to an acre.
Yes.
And there were areas where there were substantial public improvements. That were there, sewer, water, trails, I-69 fairly close. That's where the 0.67 came from, and I think. If I remember right, the 0.67 is just basically the average between the 0.34 acre and the 1 acre, 0.67. So I think just from my standpoint, a 0.67 acre zone should include our neighborhoods of record, but also it include vacant land. Like the 5.68 acre or whatever that acreage that started this conversation north of that road.
And I think that the zoning map changes happen. Or we enable this zone to exist, if that makes sense. So I understand both sides of the discussion of like pre-existing lots. And also vacant parcels that are sizable that could be subdivided. But I'm just wanting to get a consensus that if we created and enabled this zone, is it worth?
Right, is there a slot under 1 acre that needs to be investigated? And I think
The answer is yes.
the answer is yes, regardless of where the conversation goes, that is an issue.
How about the
But-
discussion?
But, for pre-existing lots, if something is zoned, 0.25 and it's currently, all the lots are 0.5 to 0.75, then that's still conforming, because they're, yeah, so I think, we need to think through that a little bit.
Yes, yeah, because the subdivision rules, if you have 0.4 acres, but your minimum lot size is 0.25, you can't mathematically subdivide and get a second lot. You don't have at least half an acre to get 2.25 acre lots. So, there's lots that will still be able to be like zoned higher density, but still exist in residential.
Yeah, no.
So then the other question is there any questions for the staff in regards to eliminating this urban density residential, or would you like us to give you further information about what that elimination means or that proposal, or do you feel comfortable with that change?
The only comment, this also kind of goes back to the brief discussion I was had about uses. Because our scenario you gave us was on the topic of multifamily dwellings. And as I flipped through all these 2 pages, this UD is the only one I could find that actually had multifamily dwelling listed as a primary use. That didn't require conditional. So, and I'm thinking also in the topic of what Commissioner Thomas said about like, what about all, what about the existing multifamily dwellings, where are they gonna fall? And what if they don't meet that condition, are they non-conforming?
Right.
Yes,
But if we were to eliminate that urban density column, I would assume that all of these permitted with standards conditional would just bump over to the high density. Now, this is still a draft. And that would be a discussion, but we can't, like you say, if we're gonna have this use, we need to put it somewhere, so it needs to go in the next highest zone. And that would help eliminate some of the nonconformities, but we could research that further if you have specific questions.
Well, and kind of backstep a little bit, and maybe that's what your line chart or whatever you called it about your uses. Is there a way that you could just give just a bare list of existing uses that aren't covered, don't plan to be covered? Multifamily, really, like that to me is a use that needs to be covered, it needs to be allowed somewhere. But if it didn't get moved over to HD, I think that would be kind of that's a needed discussion point,
Yes.
And if there was another using, senior housing, that's just part of what I read off there. If that was for some reason not gonna be covered, I think that definitely needs to be discussed.
Right, it wouldn't be a proposal, it's a good question, in eliminating the urban density zone, what I'm thinking is more of a shift or an add. Because we're adding then in between, the low density and the suburban density, which is the 0.34 and the 1 acre. We're adding the estate density, and then we're considering the highest density is gonna be high density, and so. It's mainly just a discussion point of, do we think that the design standards in high density residential zoning district are fitting for all the uses that were going to be originally urban density, which was a very small zone.
Okay, just one thought on that. I absolutely do not care at all removing the urban density. Because it is essentially redundant to high density when you get right down to it. With the stipulation that high density will only occur in areas that are identified as urbanizing in the comprehensive plan.
I have the same questions I had prior with the other example, I guess, is what was like the impetus of wanting to remove this and kind of how did we get here? And then ultimately, like, where's staff's position on this? Because I'll just add one caveat to that, it's like, from my understanding, this was something we're looking at because we thought kind of these rural communities kind of are unique and we could address and have different allowable uses that won't fall into like a high density use or something, because you know, we're building for those rural communities, and that's what,
So
you know, my
urban
focus about this urban density zone and what I may be a little off, but from like at the precipitated, that was kind of the goal. When we had the rural communities, like a long time ago, the goal was to create a zone that kind of allowed some growth there. So if we leave it with all of our current zones, how are we going to add some flexibility or some kind of like flex in that zone?
Sure. So the rural community one zone is separate from urban density. We're not proposing to strike rural community, so I don't want those two to be confused. Urban density, when staff took a look at the design standards and the lot size, we do have basically the areas that were surrounding the city of Bloomington, where the city planning department used to exercise extraterritorial jurisdiction or agreed interlocal agreement. There were zones in 1997 that actually allowed 15 units, multi-dwelling residential, 15 units to the acre, which is equivalent to the urban density zone. So we have lots out there that are zoned for that level of density, which is why we brought it over into our current county development ordinance draft. Now, when you look at the city's UDO now, they do not have a zone that's even that small. So we didn't feel it was you know, a good county standard to have a zone that was smaller than or more dense than the most dense zone in the city, if that makes sense.
No, and for clarifying it put me right on target, and also thanks for answering how we came here to kind of
Sure.
discuss this today. That's
Yep.
very clear. Thank you.
So I did have one last conversation point, but I know that everyone's been working hard tonight. The last item was just in terms of timeline. So we do have a CDO work session next month. If you all want to give me private feedback, or if you want to have any last comments about whether this kind of worksheet was helpful for you all, or if you would like to focus on something as a group next time, I'm happy to receive any of that feedback. But we are still looking to try and get your comments, get the public's comments, and move this to the next phase. So early in 2024, we'd like your approval to move towards module 3, which is parking, landscaping, signs. Some of the signs.
Nice.
So we have a lot to still do, and we still want to get that, you know, granular feedback, which, as you can see with these examples, there are many situations that your granular feedback would be helpful. There's a lot to go over. Yes. Bernie.
Yeah, this may be. The dimensional standards, do those include, are the module 3, does that include like front yard setbacks? Or is that already?
That's in the 2-pager.
Right, but are those? Can't remember.
Oh, yeah, I think we are ahead of schedule. Is that your question?
Yeah, are those set, right now, are those set in stone or front yard setbacks from public roadways? So if I look at the LD front yard setback for minor major arterial is 90 feet. Are we visiting that in module 3, or is that already set?
That's the type of feedback that would be helpful now,
Okay.
since we have it, but I think that. Trying to get to your example.
And this will make Margaret happy.
Yeah.
But if you look at some of the math with the way some of those front setbacks figure into the overall lot sizes, it becomes very cumbersome very quick. Make some of those lot sizes work.
I see. So you're saying that based on the dimensional standards and the level of setback, you would be running out of space?
I think so.
Okay,
So your exemplars are about all that's available.
well, I will tell you that these setbacks are increasing.
Yeah.
So, and these are recommended from Centerline. So we're still working with the highway department. We met with Lisa and Paul and Ben in regards to this, and also the legal department. We want to make sure we're legally able to
And,
post setbacks from Centerline, and that the,
right, and that was a concern kind of where we were at too. In the smaller, the higher density development, specifically that high density, the setback is the same pretty much as it is everywhere else at 40 feet. And my thought was this should be more like the rural community setback of 20 feet so that you can have rear parking, and any quote unquote on-street parking would occur in the parking area / street behind the residential units and not on the county thoroughfare.
so use specific setbacks. You could address that under the conditions or the standards under the table. That could be one way of doing it, but in this 2-pager, it would be pretty difficult for us to.
Right, I just want to throw that out there as
Okay.
consideration going forward.
Okay, yeah. There was also a discussion about possibly mailing physical information to people in the county ahead of a public hearing and having an additional public engagement meeting. Is there an interest by you all on staff pursuing that as a possible option to have an additional public engagement option before the hearings to put this all together? Noting that if we do an additional public engagement and additional mailings, that probably will bump our timeline a little bit beyond 2024, but if that's just due to the fact that if we host an extra public engagement, want time to get that feedback, and then to put that back in the draft. I will say that in just talking with staff, for module 2, just to give you an idea, we had 5 events so far. So we've had county parks meetings in August of 2021, 3 meetings. Virtual component to the parks meetings held in September 2021. In-person engagement during the December 2022 PC admin meeting. Online focus groups in March 2023, including 3 breakout Zoom rooms, and then 4 CDO listening sessions.
Would this be public engagement on the whole thing though?
And if that is the case, then we're not all the way there drafted, yes. If you wanted to have it on.
That would make
I feel like an opportunity for public feedback, probably a larger format, should occur after the complete proposed.
So we would have a full draft
We
ready
have
to be
a full
adopted,
draft,
but you would look
ready
into
for adoption.
mailing.
and
additional
because then it's seen as a whole and not as segments. They've only seen segments, and I think a document of this significance has to be considered as a whole and not in segments, and then say, well, you saw it 8 months ago at the public hearing. We're just simply approving what we gave you 8 months ago. You know, I don't think that is correct. I think it all needs to be viewed as a single document and then final feedback heard after that.
So
And that was the precedent of the comprehensive plan when we went through that,
did we do 2 mail?
when I did it.
No,
Okay,
no, and I think that's the issue is whether we actually need to do a mailing or if we just need to, because it's different from what the public's reacted to before. Then I think I don't know that we need to do a mailing to get people there. And I don't want it to be confused with a public hearing because we're doing a mailing, right? So if you do a mailing and it's just for feedback, that may be construed as a public hearing. And we don't want to have that happen. So I think we need to be very clear about that. And I think that everybody that's submitted could be notified by email or whatever, it would be all their email addresses. And just using social media and just announcing things like.
I think stakeholder groups as well. And we should identify who stakeholder groups are, and then they can distribute that information through their networks of communications as well.
So no mailer, but we do want one last public engagement session before formal adoption.
By the bill, you're talking about the final public notification of the.
I don't public
Right, the
notification
legal-
of the reason where.
The legal document, yeah, that has to be mailed.
The final one. Yeah, the final hearing, the preliminary final hearing will have to be mailed. It'll say Bernie Garota is currently zoned Act 2.5 will be zoned FR5. That will be your individual mail that you get.
And it's gonna go to every single address.
Yes.
Every single owner,
Well,
Yeah.
there'll be
yeah,
an opportunity for public.
outside of the city and the town. So it's not as.
A lot of postage.
It's very expensive.
It's a lot of printing because each is individually printed. It's not one document that's being printed for everybody. So it's better, it has to be printed individually.
But this is one for the public hearing.
That-
And there will be public comment and public hearing after the
Yeah.
letters go out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
With the
I
mailer,
just figured that was required.
with the mailer, when we get there, I think if we do one last mailer, when we go to that more formal final hearing phase, I think that's fine. As long as we're mailing things out, people have the opportunity to come and talk. Perfect. With the mailer, if there's space, I think it would be helpful to identify the other ordinances in the county as we send it out. So you know, folks have opportunity to explore those because they're all applicable. So I'm thinking, you know, just put a note that there's a stormwater ordinance, there's a, you know, a drainage ordinance. Things just on the mailer itself to inform the public that, you know, we're doing this, but also there's additional information.
We'll
You
put
don't think
a
so?
draft together and we'll show you.
Yeah, I worry that people think that the public hearing is for all those items and it's not.
I think you're gonna start,
That's,
Jackie's inbox is gonna get blown up with stormwater, but.
yeah.
Alright, well, if you don't think you'll,
I get what you're saying, but
it's just a sizable investment, if we can get more
Yeah.
information on that.
Yeah.
That can help the public is kind of.
I think that's the kind of thing that can go with the tax bill.
Do you want to file that?
Oh, yeah.
I think we've done some draft.
It would be great if it's.
I'd like the opportunity for this one, within the tax bill you have, but some other things.
Is it just for
Huh?
education? Or they can do opportunities?
Edits, I would say that edits all the way until the very end.
I hope so. We could.
And we're,
As long as.
What,
And then-
being considered time, what would that look like if we?
Nice to-
One final big draft.
Yes.
What kind of an impact is that gonna have on your guys' time?
it should have been.
Right.
Yes,
Better than
absolutely.
having one or
Well, we, in order to have the full draft, we've got to get everybody's comments put in. Well, what's happened is we've gotten like, 255 requests for changes in zones on the CDO survey map. We have what the draft zoning map should be, what the comp plan is, and then what people would like. We haven't gotten a decision from the plan commission or the ordinance review team thus far, to make those changes. So as we get more feedback, that's adding to it. Sure. Oh, yeah, sure. So I was just mentioning to Edward because he's asking about timelines. If we have to take in more feedback at the very end of this document and we need you all to agree to have a consensus about what to change and what not to change, because some people's feedback you may not implement into the final draft, and we have to have responses to each person. We basically are tabulating, why didn't you change my zoning? I'm ag 2.5 and I want to be GB. Where did you have this discussion that you said you're just not gonna do that? And why? So that's going to delay us in terms of compiling that feedback and getting it to you all to consider it in a public meeting, making that decision, and then editing that document. So we're getting that feedback right now, especially on the use table on the draft zone.
So are you saying that one final public hearing is done?
So the public hearing is different. So what everyone's talking about is having a public engagement session like the CDO listening sessions and then having the public hearing.
Yeah.
The public hearings can also serve as a way to get feedback and make those changes, but in the public hearing, the benefit of that is you all are meeting and making decisions that's on record. So essentially, someone could walk up to the podium and say, I would like my zone to be low density, and right now it's suburban density. I want it to go from 1 acre to 0.34. On the fly, you all could say, 5 of you could say, I disagree, just keep it suburban density next. And that way, we would just have it all in one. But if you just do another listening session, staff's compiling that, bringing that to you in another format, having you decide, putting it back for Dr. Does that make sense? Okay.
And we already have a list of comments to be addressed, right?
Yes,
That's how they're all.
since 2021 and.
We'll get it done.
Those comments.
Bring your cot and a lot of coffee.
Okay.
So I had a question.
That'd be good.
For the
You know, that's okay.
listening session, do you have to explain the vote back to people when you discuss words?
So if the plan commission, and I can bring this up at the next meeting, too, if we wanna vote on it. If you would like to have an additional public session, it would be a public meeting, not a hearing. So what you would do is just listen at that point, just listen.
And you don't have to respond individually to people make comment.
Right. You do not, but you also, I mean, technically you wouldn't have to do that in the hearing, but it would just be a little bit more expedited if you wanted to just address the comment right then and there.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
Because eventually we all need to address people's comments, so we
Yeah.
can't,
yeah.
we can't delay it, inevitably. So,
Thanks for getting us through this.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry,
for
I was, this is the first hour, but it's like you'll be great. Nobody needed me.
is there any other questions or anything else? Otherwise,
I'll make a comment.
okay.
Just to all members of the planning commission, your feedback right now is really important to us. So if you can get something to us, each of you, by the January meeting, based on some of these exercises that you've done, that'd be really helpful for us.
Can you send me a copy of the exercise?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And that's, an
Appreciate it.
example is the list that you sent out a few weeks ago.
Oh,
Well,
today.
nice.
She's
Exercise, but
Nice.
any feedback that you have that you wanna incorporate.
Looking at that.
Yeah.
Check your email first.
Yeah.
That's on this.
If you already completed it and you're done, you will take your written feedback.
Yes. I'll just be a team of one and I'll give it to you.
I'm actually, I think I might do all that.
Okay. And our next meeting is Monday.
Our next planning commission meeting is Monday.
Next Monday.
Yeah. 11. And we have a, or before that. That means we're gonna be done like by 5. Or you wanna meet over there? Think about it. Think about it. You've got 15 minutes. You, we're meeting on Monday. We've got our big TV there.
All right.
So think about it.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
We're trying to leave without.
Kind of where we're.